If you're ready to harness the power of your communications data, blast off with Nylas today.
So when I watch that video, I'm always worried that that coffee's gonna just start coming out of the cup. It's gonna overfill.
That's right. Or like overflow.
Thankfully, it's only 7 seconds, so they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's right.
Good morning, Blag, and
morning,
happy Y Day.
Yeah, happy Y Day to you too.
Cool. So you gave me kind of like a introductory education to this whole ordeal, and I'm not going to steal your thunder. So why don't we start by even talking about what is this whole Y Day?
Sure. So first we might need to mention who was Y, or who is Y. So Y was, well, he was a programmer, he was an artist, he was a musician, and he was very influential in the Ruby community. So he created a lot of packages that became pretty important. But then he suddenly disappeared on a day like this, 2009. So it's been quite a while. Where did he went? Who knows? He just wanted to be kind of like left alone. He would just wanted to get out of the programming world and the Ruby world and everything. He has his own reasons. But anyways, so what is basically Y Day? So on this day, we kind of like celebrate always contributions by creating something nice using some of the packages or gems or products that he created. So let me share a couple of them first. So I'm going to share my screen. So one of them is Apricot, which is sadly now over. Apricot was a parser for HTML, which was pretty popular back in the day. But it also was kind of like the seed for Nokogiri, which is kind of like a pretty awesome gem that you can use to parse HTML or XML files or Excel files, a lot of that.
Cool. It's just funny to me. So like, I spend more of my time certainly in JavaScript land and Node.js land. So occasionally when I look at these other sort of developer ecosystems centered around a language or a framework, and we start talking about the names of tools or things of that, you know, like open source libraries and stuff, like I just kind of laugh. We're talking about, you're using a bunch of words that are really funny to me, but it's fantastic. So you're saying that this one was kind of like an HTML parser, but it's since been sort of deprecated or it's no longer maintained.
Yeah. Actually, so Nokogiri was based on Apricot, and now Apricot is sadly over and no longer maintained. Another one that Y created was Camping, which is a Ruby micro framework, because the source code is like 4 kilobytes, which is pretty damn small. But it's important because actually Camping was kind of like inspiration for Sinatra, which is kind of the most popular micro framework for Ruby. Also, he created Shoes, which was kind of like a GUI toolkit for Ruby. So you can see pretty easy to use, pretty easy to create. And with this short amount of scope, you can create something like this. So it's pretty awesome.
I love that screenshot. It's so handmade.
Yeah, exactly. But sadly, Shoes is kind of over as well. So I think at Shoes 3, they kind of stopped working on it. But then some nice people created Shoes 4. But it's not based on Ruby anymore. It's based on JRuby, which actually runs on the Java virtual machine. So it's kind of the same. I mean, it uses the same structure. It's all the same idea. It's all Y on the inside, but just using Java kind of like the backend. But you can create exactly all the same things.
Cool. So the core technology, it's ultimately like running on top of Java, but the developer still gets to write everything in Ruby. Is that right?
Yes, cool. Exactly.
Nice.
So what we're going to do today, by the way, I need to mention that Y created 2 pretty awesome books. So Y, the first one is Y's Pointed Guide to Ruby, which is actually the first book I ever read on Ruby. And that's what gets me hooked into Ruby. It's kind of weird, it's full of comics, full of funny stories, uh, but also it's a great way to actually learn. It's explained in a way that everybody can learn. And it's funny because I was reading, and because I forgot that part. Supposedly, White wanted you to cry by reading the book. Yeah, so
That's
according
nice
to
playing it.
him, he put an onion on the book. So if the book doesn't make you cry, the onion is gonna make you cry. So,
Yeah, it's a crazy book. I was thinking about this because I went through and read this in preparation. Again, like I'll say it again, I'm not really deep into Ruby at all. But there was a time where I was thinking about going that direction about 10 years ago. And I think back then, this was kind of like early in the days of those like interactive online learn how to program courses. And so I think it was Code Academy that they had a single track at the time, and you would go in and like you had a terminal environment or whatever it was right there in the browser. And all of it was, you were learning Ruby. But I kind of, as I was going around reading or looking for resources on Ruby, in addition to Code Academy, this book came up. And I just remember going through it because I think the book I had read before that was like, I'll forget the title, but it was like the most famous introduction to C book that exists. And I will tell you that these two books are night and day. One of them is like you could imagine like reading
exactly.
it at college is like, and I'm sure that's actually where it's frequently used. It's very dry, it's useful, but like not super exciting or engaging. And then here you have like they start by talking about, yes, they're putting an onion in the book. They have like characters in there who are just trying to get the author to use the word chunky bacon in a code example.
Yeah, that's so funny. I mean, actually, so talking about shoes, why also create this other book, which is kind of similar, but it talks about shoes. So it's called Nobody Knows Shoes. So it's of course all weird cartoons and images and things like that. Uh, but it's pretty cool. I mean, and it explains everything you need to know to actually use shoes. So it's short, it's full of weird things, but it explains everything in an amazing way. So, like people like to say, Y was really an artist, and his expression was code. So
This is like to me, this, and I had not seen this one until this morning when you showed it to me, but this is very much in my mind like a zine format, right? Like those sort of homemade kind of magazines that we printed and distributed at like coffee shops or bars or wherever, right? So this is super interesting, and in some ways it's it feels like maybe, I don't know if we do this kind of thing as much anymore, but it's in my mind anyways, like kind of reminds me about some of the excitement and, like you said, the connection to like, between code and creativity and art and just general sort of like the sheer craziness of a lot of what we do in software, which is just like you think something and then you type things into a box on a computer and it happens,
Yeah, exactly.
So this is really cool. I want to go through and check this one out too. Thank you.
That's pretty amazing. So for today, to celebrate White Day, what I wanted was to create something using shoes. So I create a small kind of like mail inbox using the Nylas APIs. So I would like to showcase that. Let me share my screen again. And you're going to see here, I have my chunky bacon wallpaper in the back. So
nice way to prepare.
Exactly. So this is the mailbox that I created using shoes for. So it's based on JRuby, as I said. This one is connected to my connected account. So I have my connected account to Nylas. So every time I read the inbox, I'm actually reading my connected account.
And just this is the first time you showed it to me. I just kind of glossed right over this, but you're running a desktop app here, right? This isn't a browser. You can see up there in the top left-hand corner on the Mac. It's it's got its own I don't know, menu item, I guess is what you would call that. So like, yeah, this is like a desktop app running that you wrote in Ruby.
Exactly. So here you see, I'm just grabbing the first 5 elements or the first 5 emails. Obviously, I could grab more. I just wanted to keep it simple. So what I'm going to do, kind of like demonstrate, if I'm gonna go to my personal email and I'm gonna send an email to my connected account, which is this one. So I'm gonna say something like Happy Wise Day 2022. Enjoy your day. So I'm gonna send it, and it should land on my account. So let's see, just refresh. Okay, here it is. We can see that we have it here. And actually what I'm gonna do is mark it as unread. And I'm gonna go to my client and just refresh.
And the part there for just a second ago, you were showing us about like it showing up in the other Gmail account was really just to demonstrate that this is all happening through Gmail anyways. But we also,
exactly,
using the Nylas APIs and Shoes, build our own sort of like local email client that would also show the same emails coming in.
Yes, and you can see here that I have the email. It's a different color because it's unread. So I mark it as unread. So it's gonna be here and unread as well. So I can know if I have any new emails or I have already read them. So I can actually go inside and see what's the content. Yeah, enjoy your day, my signature. So I have read it. And then I think about this is that I'm reading it here on the client, but it's also gonna send a notification to Gmail that this email has been read. So if I just go back and I return here, it has been read. So it's kind of like synchronized.
Yeah, so you can think about basically here in the browser, that's the Gmail client in the browser. That's what we all use, generally speaking. But you've built your own mail client using Nylas APIs. And so everything you do there is a first-class citizen of the email account in general. So whatever you do here will update there and vice versa.
Yes, exactly. So I can actually go in here as well, and I can say I want to reply. And okay, something unexpected happened.
Token. Yeah, tech demo time. But yeah, so I don't know, is that something you think you can fix in real time?
Yeah, sure. Just let me
Cool.
share my screen and let me see what happened.
While you're having a look at that, I was just thinking through like one of the emails that was just in your inbox because I was being sneaky and looking through your email box. I noticed that the corporate swag email just came to all of us yesterday and it was showing there on your screen. It is interesting to think that you're showing us how to use a technology called Shoes while a lot of us at Nylas are waiting on our first pair of Nylas shoes to be delivered at home. I'm like super excited with like the new logo and everything.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I know what happened here. Let me. Okay. So this is gonna take just a second.
You got it.
Bear with me.
In the meantime, I'm looking for that Shoes book.
And that should be it. Let me try it real quick. So this is a way to show people that we're actually live.
Oh yeah. We've had a question before. Someone said like, "Are you really doing this live or is it pre-recorded?" And it's like, no, definitely live, and definitely can suffer from live tech demo, the live tech demo gods. It's funny too, because like I'm actually even failing to come up with that shoes book that you just showed us a second ago. This is the fun part about when you're like learning how to do your Google foo as a programmer and learning how to search for things. Just imagine you're searching for like search terms like shoes, or the name of the book, No One Knows Shoes, or what else am I supposed to type? Ruby shoes, and let's see what comes up instead.
Yeah, so it's gonna be, I'm gonna share my screen in just a second. I just need to change the Java version because actually when it's an older version of the Java virtual machine, and I don't want to change that all the time, so I just change it on my current session.
Cool. Yeah, I guess that's the fun part is like fun in air quotes, because I think like since it's running on top of Java, there's a time lag between like when you can, once you make a change, right? And I guess it's got to compile and all that before you can run the application.
Yeah, and I also need to change the kind of like the runtime environment. So let me see. Already, I fix it. Thanks for waiting. Let's share my screen again. And there we go. So I can go in here and I can say reply. So I can say, thanks. Happy Day to you too. So I'm gonna send it. And if I go to my Gmail, I should have it here.
You got the reply back.
I get the reply back, exactly. I can also compose, so I can set a complete new email to whatever I want. So recipient name, Blag. I'm gonna send it to my Gmail. Set this email was sent using Nylas APIs and choose for. Set hello from the celebration of Wi-Fi. So I'm gonna send it. And if I go back, it's here.
Nice. Oh, cool. You built your own email client, and maybe at least for me, I wouldn't expect that. I've never really thought about being able to build desktop applications using Ruby, but this framework clearly makes that possible. So, if you think through to like, for example, well, coming again from Node.js land and JavaScript land, like you might think, okay, things like Electron.
Yeah.
Would enable you to do similar things, but in Ruby land, this is one of your options, and I'm not sure if there are more, or if this is. Do you think like this is the current state of like how people could do this?
Oh, well, there are more, but I really have problems trying to install them. Like this, like TK, and there's it's called JRuby, I think. I had a lot of problems on the Mac trying to install them, trying to make them run.
Sure.
And choose what's kind of like the best option possible.
Nice.
So actually, if you see, I can also delete this email. So I can read it. I can go delete. It's going to disappear from here, of course. So I can go to my mailbox and it goes away.
Look at that, the magic of working with the Nylas APIs. You get like you definitely get the full range of CRUD options, and because those are all in the API, you can expose them into, like in this case, the email client you're building.
Yeah, so of course there are some limitations because obviously I'm showing or displaying the email like in a text box. So there's gonna be hard to like actually pretty print it, you could say. But still, I mean, it's a nice way to kind of like create an inbox using shoes and JRuby and everything.
Yeah, and for a brief demo, this is perfect. So I
Mhm.
mean, definitely, showing things like nicely formatted HTML messages is within the realm of possibility. That's not a limitation. It's just a matter of like when you're doing a tech demo, how deeply will we go? And today we're showing off how to show the plain text messages.
Yeah.
So we, typically speaking, from here, we would probably go into some code. What do you think we should do? Do you want to have a quick look inside of the code, or do we just want to link people out to it?
Look, what I can do is we can take a look on the flow. So what I did is I didn't grab the whole source code. I just put some bits in there because actually, if you go to our Nylas blog, there's already a blog posted. And also, if you go to our Nylas samples, you're going to have the full source code. So
nice. So you will get both. You can read about it in long form, and you can also get the code and just run it.
Yes, but still, I want to share my screen so we can quickly go in here. This one is compose. So it's actually when I go here and click this compose button. So we're going to see that we have recipient's name, recipient's email, subject, and body. We also have two buttons, back and send. So here we're actually creating the UI. So here, flow do button is going to create this back button. And with this do, what we're going to say is say visit slash, which is kind of like home. So if I press back, we're going back to our email. On compose, if I press send, what is going to happen is that it's going to create a new instance of the send email class, passing the recipient, the email, the text, and the body. And then it's going to send the email. Here, we are creating the boxes for the name, the email, the subject, and the body. And they're going to be stored here. And these are actually class instance variables. So I can pass them here. Once we get there, well, we have a class which is called headers, where we're going to have the authorization token, or better. And then on the same
this part, I'll just interject real quick. From this part on, so I think that first part you were using shoes to lay out the UI and define some of the handlers for user interaction, like what do we do on click and that kind of thing, or how to handle the routing between different views. So all of that was happening there. Blag, you walked me through this yesterday, and I had 1,000 questions about it because, again, coming from JavaScript land, very different way of thinking about things. It was really cool to see this. Starting with this headers class on down, this is where you've opted to basically roll your own kind of way of interacting with the Nylas APIs, starting with setting up the headers for those API requests.
Exactly. And I'm getting this access token from my Nylas dashboard. So if you have a Nylas user, you can go into your dashboard and get the token. So here, when I initialize the send email class, I'm going to pass here the recipient name, email, subject, etc. Here, I'm going to grab the header from this class here. And then I'm going to create a body, passing the subject, the body, the recipient name, recipient email, and even the reply ID if I have one available. I mean, if I'm replying to an email. When I go into the send method, what I'm doing is basically calling the send endpoint from Nylas. I'm passing the headers, and then I'm passing the body as a JSON. So when I click send, it's pretty much going to grab what I have here, the name, the email, the subject, and the body. It's going to put it into a JSON response, and then it's going to call the send endpoint and actually send the email.
Cool. And so that send email class, again, is something that you put together, and it's using that create headers class that you created. So what happens from here is really up to the developer. So in this situation, you're calling the send email from further back up in your shoes code. And let's say, for example, if you wanted to do something based on the Nylas response to your API request, you could do it there. In this situation where you're composing a message, there's really not much to do, at least in this demo, other than wait for the request and response to complete and then redirect back to the inbox view of the mail client that you've built.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can do once you, I mean, I can grab this add email variable and I can extract a lot of information from the email. So I can say like, who is the receiver, who is the sender, when it was sent, what's the body of the email, etc., etc., etc.
All right, well, super cool. What a great demo for Wise Day. We got to go through, and it's a happy coincidence that the UI, the GUI framework that happened to work best for you happened to be originally authored by Y.
Yeah.
So we got to have a look at that, go through some code to see how we might use shoes with Nylas APIs to build an email client. Of course, the sky's the limit in terms of what you might want to do with your Ruby code. And in addition to, in this case, you're calling the Nylas APIs directly using a library called HTT Party.
Yes.
Make sure I say that right. But if you're working in a different context or have we also have a Ruby SDK that Ruby developers can take advantage of.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to demonstrate that you can use either the SDK or you can either call the APIs straight, which is a great option for developers.
Nice. Well, cool. Thanks for bringing up Wise Day, and certainly I know way more about Ruby after this week than I have in probably 10 years. So this has been an educational experience for me, and it's also been really fun to see just like, building a desktop client using a web language like Ruby is always like, it just feels like you're getting away with something in a good way. So pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, well, so I hope you guys like it. Thank you so much, Ash, as always. Bye. Sure.
Bye, everybody. And one more thing, remember, if you have something that you want us to cover in the future, always feel free to reach out, whether it's about the APIs in general or whether it's about specific languages. Working with our APIs, we offer SDKs in Node, Java, Ruby, and Python. But we're happy to cover that and beyond. So feel free to reach out. Let us know what you need. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Blag.
Bye, take care. Bye, Ash.
Have a nice day.
You too.